Yeah, I'm Brian S. Pratt here, so I'm at my girlfriend's, obviously, right? And so I'm going to read chapter 4 of Trail of the Gods, book 4 of the Morcyth Saga. So just a quick recap. James has settled in at the ranch, Hearn's old place in Trendle, and he's been doing some magical experiments, and he's becoming bothered by people who keep showing up wanting to either look at him or ask him for favors or whatever. And he's starting to get really annoyed by all this. And they've set up a guardhouse at the end of the lane leading to the ranch to turn away everyone that shows up. They've had one attack by the Empire. Will there be more? I don't know. He's got a chest being built, constructed by a blacksmith that will incorporate gems that he'll use to help hide the fire. And most likely, once the fire is hidden well, the incursions by the Empire should stop. Well, maybe lessen anyway. Well, here we go, chapter 4. We'll see what's going on. So I'm going back home tonight, and then I will be on my regular schedule after that. So actually, you're going to get this Wednesday morning, so I'll be home. Anyway, here's chapter 4. The following morning, when James headed into town, Jerome and Michael accompanied him. Ilan insisted that after last night being when the Empire attacked, for his safety, he shouldn't be out alone. At the end of the lane, he found Jory and Yurn, who was working guard duty. They waved as they passed and soon approached the outskirts of town. With Jerome on his right and Michael on his left, they moved through the outlying buildings of Trendle. The streets look a bit more crowded than usual, Jerome observed. 1 second. James had been deep in thought about the night before and hadn't been paying much attention. But now that he saw what Jerome meant. The crowds were slightly more crowded, and many faces he'd never seen before. But when they moved among the people, he heard hushed conversations, and every once in a while, caught someone pointing at him out of the corner of his eye. Irritating, he thought to himself. Once at the mayor's office, they dismounted and left Michael to watch the horses while James and Jerome went in. Just be careful, he warned Michael. As long as the crowds keep their distance, don't do anything. All right, he replied. Michael stood at the ready with his back against the building, one hand resting on the hilt of his sword. James tried to hide the grin that wanted to escape at the sight of Michael being so serious. Because in his mind's eye, he still sees a little boy, even though Michael is like a 6'2" grown man now. Let's go, he said to Jerome, who opened the door. They headed up to the second floor and then down the hall. When they knocked on the mayor's door, hang on 1 second. They received no answer. Jerome opened the door and looked inside. No one's here. After closing the door, they retraced their steps back down to the hallway, where when they came abreast of a door on their right, several people could be heard talking on the other side. James stopped and looked to Jerome, who only shrugged. Jerome knocked on the door, and the talking abruptly ceased. The door opened, and a man peered out. Yes? We'd like to see the mayor, James explained. Do you have an appointment? Well, actually, no, he admitted. But this is rather important. I'm afraid you'll have to return another time, the man said. He's in a meeting with the town council. As the man began to close the door, James said, just tell him James was here to see him. Before the door closed, it opened back up quickly and the mayor stepped out. You come on in, James, he said. To the man who had told James to be on his way, he said, James here never needs an appointment to see me. Yes, sir, the man replied. Within were several other men, Corbin being one of them, sitting around a large table. Hang on 1 second. Who sat around a large table? He gave James a nod as he entered. The mayor took his seat at the head of the table, and the man who had answered the door pulled 2 more chairs over for James and Jerome. Gentlemen, the mayor announced, for those of you who have not yet to meet him, this is James. A murmur began, which the mayor quickly silenced. Now, you know Corbin here, the mayor said to James. Next to him is Poland, and then Beryl, Mon, Durek, Aaron, Igren. This is Trendle's town council. Good day to you all, said James. He received an answering salutation from the council members. We were just talking about you, Corbin said. Yes, John, the mayor, jumped in. It seems your notoriety has attracted many people to the area. I'm sorry, apologized James. I hadn't planned on that. No need to be sorry, young man, Poland said. A man of middle years, dark hair, and dressed well, Poland gave off an air of friendliness. In fact, we were just discussing how we could increase it. Getting a dark look, James asked, what for? All those people will need places to eat and, places to rest, food to eat, Mon replied with a grin. Mon was a fat man with slightly stained clothes. James figured him as some kind of innkeeper or possibly someone else in the service business. And there's a profit to be made here, added Aaron, an older man, all but gray. But at my expense, James exclaimed. His outburst took the council aback. You're not having to pay for anything, Beryl interjected. A younger man with a slight attitude, he looked at James like he shouldn't have to state the obvious. Corbin jumped in and said, I think what James meant is that he will pay with his privacy. Isn't that right? Yes, Corbin, James replied. Exactly. Already, I've had people out of my place who are disturbing me. I've even set up guards to keep them off my lands. Do you think that's wise? Durek asked. Another middle-aged man, he fit in with what Corbin had once said about the mayor's drinking buddies. If word gets around that you turn people away, they may not come. Good, he exclaimed. I don't want them to come, and I certainly don't want to become a tourist attraction just so you all can fatten your purses. Now, James, the mayor said as he got to his feet, there's no need to get upset. Jaron laughed, and everyone's attention was drawn to him. Even James glanced in his direction. What's so funny? Asked Igrin, a small man with a keen eye that seemed to take in everything. Standing up, Jerome said, he's not upset, gentlemen. I'd say he's merely annoyed. He's the last person you ever want to see upset. He glanced around the table, his mood slowly turning serious as he made eye contact with each councilman before continuing. While you're here deciding upon the best way to exploit this situation, things are happening of which you're not even aware. Last night, a mage from the Empire with 12 soldiers attacked and we nearly lost the battle. This is just the first incident. You can be sure there will be more. The notoriety that you are counting on to draw the people to put money in your pockets will also bring those of an unsavory nature. And I'm not talking about just those from the Empire looking to kill James here. With people come thieves and all that goes with them. Think about that. James stood up. I ask you not to go forth with any plans that will draw people to me. Aside from being irritated, it could very well put them in jeopardy. To Jerome, he said, we've said all that needs to be said. Let's go. As they left the council chamber, Corbin got up and followed them out into the hallway, closing the door behind him. Is everyone okay? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Everyone's fine, Jerome replied. Urine has a nasty cut, but nothing else major. I'm glad, he said. Sorry about that in there. I remember how much you liked your quiet. It just makes me mad, James stated. They're planning on making a profit off of me at my expense. I like Trendle, but it is not the only town on the map. If it gets too bad, I'll move. I know, and I hate to see that happen, Corbin said. I'd better get back in before they go and pass a ruling without me. Thanks, Corbin, he said, holding out his hand. Corbin took the hand. Come out for dinner sometime. Mary and the kids would love to see you again. I may. Just really busy right now, James explained. Corbin opened the door to the council chamber and then went back inside. James heard them talking about what he couldn't quite make out through the door. As they moved down the hallway and descended the stairs, Jerome asked, were you serious about moving? Not for a while, and only if it gets bad around here. Outside, they found Michael still standing by their horses. At their approach, he glanced back and then turned to face them. No one's been a bother, he announced as he patted his horse. That's good news, James said as he mounted. As they rode through the streets, he again heard the whispers and caught people pointing at him. Ears burned slightly from the attention. He kicked his horse into more of a canter, and they quickly left the town behind. I think I may not come back for a while, he announced, once they'd ridden a ways out of town. Don't blame you, Michael said. I find it unnerving, and it's not even directed at me. Before reaching the lane to the ranch, they saw 3 men walking away from Jory, who was still on duty. As they rode past the men, one looked like he was about to address James, but James hurried past before he had a chance. At the entrance, Jory said, So far, they're the only ones to show up today. What do they want? Just asked if you were here, he explained. When I told them you had gone into town, they turned around and started back. James glanced back and saw where the three men had paused there in the road, as if they were deciding whether or not to return now that he was there. Finally, they turned and continued down the road back to town. Irritating, James said as he started down the lane to the main house. Out back, he saw where the hole in the ground from where the crystal had exploded last night already being filled in. Hang on one second. Sean had begun laying out a new framework for another coop. Drone went to the barn while James rode over to talk with him. Well, Master Builder, James said as he came close, got tired of working on the house? Grinning, he said, no, but they have it under control for the moment, so I thought I'd put together another coop for you before nightfall. Your cook asked me if I could. You don't mind, do you? It's fine, he replied. You have everything you need? All but the chicken wire, and I understand one of your men has gone into town to get that. Good. He turned his horse toward the barn, and soon had him settled in. Around the back of the house, he found Roland chopping wood. When he saw James approaching, he put the axe down. Just a thought. Did they have chicken wire in medieval times? I don't know. I've never looked into it. Well, it stands. He turned his horse toward the barn and soon had him settled in. Around the back of the house, he found Roland chopping wood. When he saw James approach, he put his axe down. Ezra has commandeered your builder for the day. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't think you would mind. When James shook his head, showing he didn't, he continued. It's just that she's arranged for 3 dozen chickens to arrive tomorrow and wanted a place ready for them. That's fine, he assured him. Where did she get that many? From several of the neighboring farms. I'll be out back in the workhouse if anyone needs me. Okay, said Roland as he picked up his axe and resumed splitting section logs into firewood. Rather than going directly to his workshop, he headed for the crystals that were left in the forest from the day before. He went to the one off by itself to see if the glow still remained after being deactivated all night. When he at last found it, he saw that the glow did remain and that it looked to be just as strong as it had the day before. Feeling really good about the whole thing, he replaced the crystal back down where it had been. May as well leave it to see how it behaves over the next couple days. Now, to the other ones. He could easily tell where the other 2 crystals had been left. Before he even got close, he saw how the withered area had grown much greater than it had been the day before. Where there were 2 distinct areas, now there were but 1. The 2 areas surrounding the crystals had merged together and continued expanding. Everything within a foot of each crystal was completely dead. Both had a deep crimson glow and looked to be filled to capacity. Canceling the spells, he bent down and picked them up. They didn't feel any different. Still hard, cool to touch, and felt like their weight hadn't changed. He put one in his pocket, and the other he took over to where the first one lay. He set the crystal down next to it, figuring to come back the next day and compare the 2 to see if the one with more power had lost any. Returning to the workshop, he took several crystals out and cast the leeching spells upon them, utilizing the spells, which would only draw a very minuscule quantity, at a time so as not to kill the surrounding vegetation. Hang on a second. He also added the signature spell to each to make sure they wouldn't leech from each other. Unless there were special circumstances, he would always incorporate the signature spell. Later on, when he's doing these, it's just automatic. Boom, boom, he does it. And so I don't keep talking about it really. He would rather take a week to charge 1 crystal than to kill off the vegetation to do it faster. Plus, it would be obvious to anyone passing by. Upon returning from the forest, he went and helped Sean with the chicken coop. Michael and Pfeiffer were already at work under the master builder's direction. They had finished the initial framework and were starting the roof when he joined them. By the time the evening meal was ready, they nailed the last of the roosting boxes securely to the walls. Ezra stepped out to call them in for dinner and smiled upon finding it finished. Coming over, she nodded and said, "Very nice, yes, very nice indeed, thank you." "You're welcome," Sean said to her. Then to James she said, "I better check on how they're doing with the house." "Shouldn't have messed it up too much," James joked with a grin. "They better not have messed it up at all if they expect to go home tonight," he vowed, then headed on over. Pfeiffer just laughed as he and Michael went to get cleaned up for dinner. James followed. At the table, James told everyone about the meeting with the town council. At the table, James related the meeting with the town council, and there were angry mutterings. Yes, that's a good. Okay, at the table, James related the meeting with the town council, and there were angry mutterings from the ones who stood out at the road, keeping everyone away. "It's bad enough now," Jory said. "Today alone, I turned away at least 7 people. Some took it okay. Others got downright angry at not being able to speak with you." "What do they want?" "Most won't tell me. Others are just stupid things," he replied. "One woman wanted you to remove a wart, and another was sure that someone had put a curse on him." "A curse?" asked Ilan, amused. "Yes, a curse," replied Jory. "He claims that his streak of losing at cards could only be due to a curse." "I told him it was more likely that he just was no good. He didn't like that and told me so in not very friendly words. "I'm sorry you have to put up with that," James apologized. "Maybe when the word spreads that I don't see anyone, they'll stay that way. They'll stay away." "I hope so," Jerry sighed. "If not, I'd like a shack or something out there we can relax in. Now's not too bad, but in the winter, it could get bad out there." They ate in silence for a while, each digesting what had been said. Suddenly from outside, they heard the sound of wagons rolling toward the house. Uther got up and went to the front room, and shortly his voice rang out. "Delia's back." Jaron got up and hurried out, Tersa right behind. James finished another bite and then said to Ezra as he indicated his plate, "I'm not finished yet." Then he got up and went out to meet them as well. He found Delia and Tersa giving each other a hug. Shorty was getting down from where he'd been driving the wagon, and Scar, Potbelly, and Stig were dismounting from their horses. "I told you we'd make it back here by dark," he heard Potbelly say to Scar. One second. I just caught it. I had the sound of wagons, but Delia's only got one wagon at this point in time, so I had to change that. "I told you we'd make it back here by dark," he heard Potbelly say to Scar. "Fine," Scar said as he handed over several coins. "How's the trading business?" James asked when he approached. "Not as good as I hoped," she explained. "But I'm just starting out and have no contacts. Few will trust me with their loads. But give me time and I'll win them over." "I'm sure you will," he said. "We've just sat down to dinner. You're welcome to share with us." "That's okay," she said. "I doubt if Ezra had planned on so many. We'll just eat our own food tonight. Though tomorrow morning, we would love to take advantage of her cooking before we head out." "Leaving so soon?" "Afraid so. The merchant we dropped the shipment off to in Wirt commissioned another one for Baron, and of course, it needs to be there yesterday, so we haven't any time to dally." "I understand," he said sympathetically. "The customer comes first. At least, now that I'm trying to make a name for myself. I appreciate you sending Shorty with the letter and the crystals." "You're welcome," she replied. "I knew you were looking for them, and there was no need for you to wait because of some impatient merchant. I appreciate that. I know you've got things to do, so come on in once everything gets settled." "I will," she said. He heard Jerome and Tersa catching up on things with Stig and the others as he walked back to the house. When he entered the kitchen, Ezra looked at him with a slightly strained expression. "Don't worry," he said. "They're not coming to dinner." "We might have enough," she said, as the tension within her began to dissipate. Shaking his head, he said, Delia knows you haven't planned for them and doesn't want to drop in at the last minute with so many mouths. She said they'll fix their own, but would be looking forward to some of your cooking before they pull out in the morning. Relief now evident on her face, she nodded and said, they'll not be disappointed. Okay, that scene there, honeymooners. Okay, there was a scene where Ralph brought home, it was either maybe his boss, maybe two working, but whatever. But Alice hadn't planned on anything, right? And when he walked in with them and said, honey, they're here for dinner, and dinner was going to be like in 20 minutes, she was hot. And that always stuck with me. And so that's why where this came from. I love the honeymooners. James sat back down and finished his meal. Jerome and Tersa never made it back in time. Never made it back in by the time he was finished, and Ezra was ready to clear the table. He told her to go ahead, that they would not likely be back to finish. He went out to the front room and sat in his favorite chair by the window as he watched them finish getting the horses and wagon set for the night. Roland came in and built a fire in the fireplace in anticipation of a cool evening. Even though it got hot during the day, after the sun went down, it tended to get a little bit of a chill in the air. Outside, he heard Jerome telling them about last night's attack. Delia had her guards rotate watch around the wagons in case of a similar event tonight. When all was settled in, they broke out their rations and had a quick meal while the sun made its first descent to the horizon. Made its final descent to the horizon. By the time they were finished, it had vanished and the stars began to appear. Delia, Jerome, and Tersa came to the house when she was done eating. Jerome carried a small box. Sitting by yourself again? Delia asked as she entered. It's peaceful, he replied with a grin. Nodding to Jerome, he asked, what's in the box? She reached for the box and Jerome handed it to her. On the road, I got to thinking about your shaving kit and the knife you used to use. She opened the box and pulled out a small knife. I thought that if you could do that with others, maybe we could sell them. Who would want one? Any barber out there, she explained. Also, those with sheep that need shearing may want them as well. She looked at him expectantly. Well, it's not a matter if I can, he finally said, but if I will. What do you mean, she asked. I know you've been worried about how to raise money for this place. Having so many to care for isn't going to be cheap, and the money you already have won't last forever. He started to respond when Jerome jumped in. You're worried about people finding out, right? Exactly, he said. If I started doing this, there's no end to the number of people who would flock here, each of them wanting me to make them something that they desperately had to have. I understand your concern, Delia said. I don't plan on telling anyone where I got them. Your secret is safe with me. He sat there considering it while they waited expectantly. If I do this, you must swear to never tell anyone where you got them. I swear it. How many do you have? 10, she replied. Nodding, he held his hand out for the box. Understand that the magic enabling these to work will come from the one using it. They have to be aware of that fact, or they may get seriously hurt if they do it for an extended period of time. If too much is drawn from them, they could become weakened, even die, though I doubt if that last is much of a possibility. I understand, she said, handing him the box. One by one, he removed the dull knives and cast his spell on them that would allow them to cut hair, but nothing else. When the spell had been set in the handle, he laid it on the side table next to his chair. By the 6th night, he was beginning to feel the effects of doing too much magic. At the 8th, he could barely focus enough to be able to cast it properly. Once finished with the 8th knife, he sagged back in his chair. 8's going to have to be it for now, he said. I can't do anymore. She came over and removed from the box the final 2 he hadn't yet enchanted. She then placed in the 8 that he had imbued with magic. I'm sure this will be fine. She could see the way his eyelids drooped a bit and appeared exhausted. You look as if you could use some rest. Yeah, I do need to, he said. I don't think you understand just what that took out of me, especially with all the stuff he did the night before and he's been on the go, yeah, and his experiments. He needs rest. He got to his feet and wobbled unsteadily for a moment. Jerome was right there and gave him a shoulder to lean on as he helped him to his room. When they got there, James plopped down on his bed and before Jerome left, said, "Tell her to get another batch of crystals. The same amount as before, and that should be all I'll need for a while." "Will do," he said as he moved to the bedroom door. You get some rest, and I'll see you in the morning." Before he closed the door, James was already asleep. And that's the end of chapter 4. So his experiments on enchanting the crystals seem to be doing well. Now he's going to start selling his barber knives, shaving knives, whatever you want to call them. And the town council, they're just irritated. I mean, they're businessmen, and so they see an opportunity and they want to exploit it because it's good business would help Trendle. It would. I'm sure James understands that, but it's all going to be on him and everything. So a lot of this is a build up for Trevelle. If you've read Trevelle, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, well, you will when you get there. Anyway, personal note, I'm with my girlfriend's. I'm leaving tonight, so I got her flowers. I mean, nothing too special, but she doesn't know I'm giving them to her yet, so when she gets home, she'll see them on the table when she walks in the door. I'm hoping to get a big kiss and hug for that. Because the best things you do for a lady is stuff you don't have to do, and you surprise her with it. But don't surprise her with a whole bunch of hungry mouths to feed 20 minutes before dinner's ready. You will not get a kiss and hug for that. You might get knocked side the head. Anyway, y'all take care, and I'll be on the road in about 4 or 5 hours. We're going out for Chinese food tonight. There's a little place in Wichita Falls she likes to eat at. And then I'll be home, and then I'll get going. I've got another thing I'm doing too. I don't know if you guys have checked it out, but I'm starting, if you look on YouTube, you'll see a playlist called My Books. And what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to do one video and just talking about one book. It's not really going too in depth, but it's talking so people who haven't read it yet will get a better idea of what it's about. Now, if you see those, I would love a like, I would love a share, and a brief comment as if you've read it, about what you liked about it, and so forth. So you don't have to, but it would be a help. I've only got one on there right now, and that's the Unspecting Mage. I'm going to go through the Morcyth Saga first, then we'll go from there. Anyway, y'all take care.